March 17th. I'm Rim.
I'm Scott.
And this is Geeknights. Tonight, Scott talks about what computer programming languages are.
Let's do this.
You know, my car, I'll say this openly, because if any police officers listen to this show and happen to be police officers in a jurisdiction that covers me, you're probably cool enough to not come after me or even care because
But
you're
you
listening.
did something illegal?
I've done something illegal continuously for about 7 months now.
What have you been doing?
I've been driving an uninspected car.
Oh, good job.
Yeah, but I did look it up. The fine is like $20 if they catch you, and you have to go get the inspection, which
I
costs
renewed my car on time. Thank you very much.
Well, the reason I didn't was that the last time I renewed my car, I've told this story before, but I went to the mechanic, some shady mechanic in Yonkers, because near my work back then, and I was like, hey, I need an inspection. And he says, you want me to actually inspect it, or you just want the sticker? And I said,
Nah.
And I told him to really inspect it, and it passed. But I know my front shocks are shot.
Mm-hmm.
They're completely shot.
All right.
But then again, I don't know exactly what it takes to pass a New York State inspection.
Nope.
So I took my
I
car.
guess you could look it up.
Yeah, but I don't know much about cars either. Like, you realize, I remember way back when my front right control arm bushing was broken. And I knew what a bushing was. And I think I knew what a control arm was, but I wasn't quite sure what the front right control arm bushing was. And I tried to look under my car, and I couldn't even tell what was broken. And the guy was like, yeah, I have to fix this. But then I learned what it was. Like, oh, okay, and it made sense. I'm glad I got it fixed. But my car has a lot of minor problems, and I took it, and I'm like...
It's kind of old.
I decided, all right, my deal is, unless it's a new car, I'm going to go find some shady mechanic, because a shady mechanic who is certified and gets business.
Yeah, if you inspect cars in New York, you have to put this metal sign on your mechanic shop in plain view that says, we are certified to inspect cars. And it's this big, they got a big yellow sign and a big green sign. They say different things, but if you see those signs on a building, you can get your car inspected there.
Yep. Now, beyond all that, pretty much what I've learned throughout my life is that you don't want to go to a scuzzy-looking mechanic, but you want to go to a kind of rough and tumble-looking mechanic, because those are the people who, if they're still in business, it means they know enough about cars to keep getting business. And two, people like that tend to be a lot more resourceful.
Or they have to be a great location where cars break down all the time.
Like the shitty one in Yonkers.
Yeah.
But I needed to get this inspection, so I looked in Beacon, and there's a bunch of, mid-range, not scuzzy looking, just, kind of like rough and tumble looking mechanics. And I just picked one randomly, the one that was in the most convenient location. And let me tell you, that lady in there is one of those, like, badass mechanics. And those kinds of mechanics, just a little hint for all you out there, will always they will tell you what it will cost to fix something the quote-unquote right way, but they'll also tell you how to fix it the clever, cheap way, which usually involves getting parts from salvage.
For an old car, that's not a bad way to go.
For an old car, for any car older than like 4 or 5 years that isn't a special car, that's the way to go, because a salvage switch is no different than a new switch.
Yep.
Anyway, I come in, and remember, I think because it was kind of a low-income area for a long time, I was like, all right. I go back, and I'm like, so what's the damage? What'd you find? And she's like, well, I had to fail your inspection, and I got some bad news. And I'm thinking, shit, the shocks are shot. That would cost so much to replace. I'm just going to have to throw the car away and buy a new one like this week. God damn it. And she's like, everything's fine, except all these little things. I fixed all those for free, because whatever. And I'm like, okay. And that's also the cool thing. Mechanics like that will totally fix minor stuff for free, because it's like, I replaced the light bulb on the back of your car.
Yeah, pay me for the light bulb.
The light bulb cost a nickel. I'm not even going to charge you for it.
Sometimes they're $2.
It depends on what kind of car, what kind of light bulb.
Yeah.
If you want that fancy light bulb or not.
Wow.
Yeah. But she does it. Apparently I was missing a lug nut.
All right.
And she showed me, like, yeah, where the fuck did my lug nut go?
All right.
Someone take it? But then she's like, but yeah, the bad news. It's going to have to cost about $160 to replace the headlight switch, because I can't find a Sunfire even close to yours in any salvage yard in this county. To which I thought, wow, my car must be pretty reliable. And two, $160, whatever.
Yeah, it's like, all right, that's damage. I don't think that's damage.
Pretty much, as long as a car continues to run, if you own it, any repair that's less than $1,000 that's going to last at least a year is worth it compared to buying a new car.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't care about having a newer car, you're willing to keep driving the old jalopy, go nuts.
Yeah, plus
It works.
As old a jalopy
It
as
goes.
it goes pretty damn well, and there's nothing wrong with it except that one thing. That
The
she's
thing
fixing.
is, when you really think about it, you're paying $160 instead of paying a $20 ticket. You're better off just paying the $20 ticket.
See, the problem with that is that, all right, $20 ticket. Also, if I'm in an accident with an expired inspection, it'll be real hard to claim no fault, even if I'm not at fault because I have a car that's not legal.
Yeah.
And whenever my registration is due, I can't renew it without a valid inspection.
That's true also.
And you only need the inspection once a year or every 2 years.
You need the registration every 2 years, the
Yeah.
inspection every 1 year.
Man, I remember in Michigan, the registration lasts like 5 years. The license lasts like 20 years. My Michigan license still says it's valid.
Great.
Anyway, I got that out of the way because that's pretty much the good thing that we have to talk about this morning. Because you see, getting up this morning, it was a normal day going to work. And I get on my train and I notice that there's a freaking lot of people on the train. And they're all wearing green. And some of them are drunk. And I note that I take the 5:32 express train.
Into the city?
AM.
All right.
Yeah.
Did it cause any problems or was it just loud and annoying?
It was very, very crowded to the point that it took a long time to get people on the train. And my train got into the city like 20 minutes late as a result.
See, I took the 7:44 train. I wanted to take the 7:28, but I slept. And the 7:44 was 10 times worse than that. Basically, I saw at the train station, I can't tell if they were college or high school. If they were college, they were the most immature college kids ever.
Oh, I ran into a bunch of high school kids carrying around like a 2-liter that looked like it was full of Coke and like, I don't know, some kind of liquor. And they're all passing it around. They're all
Anyway,
obviously 14.
They were in the second to last car, so I got into the last car, because I wasn't going to run around to the front of the train or anything. And they basically, everyone else was like, they would look into that car and say, I'm not going in that car. As a result, you had this entire train car full of rowdy punk kids. I don't know if there was alcohol or whatever.
There was. I can say from
some
experience.
of them, I think there was like smoking going on in the vestibule. It was out of control. And basically, the conductor was fed up with that shit. And they were getting rowdy and whatnot. So he stopped at Croton Harmon and was like, I'm calling the police. This train isn't going anywhere.
That would totally be worth it just to see the comeuppance.
Yeah, and basically all that happened is some people went over and got on the nice train that, was sort of...
If my train ever stopped in Croton Harmon and I was going into work...
Well, the train was going to stop there anyway.
Yeah, but if it stopped there and there was any problem, I would totally get on those other trains. Because some of the trains are great.
The other trains are real nice, but it was going to make a bunch of stops before Grand Central.
Well, it depends. There are some of those that are express from Croton to Grand Central.
Yeah, but not at the same, basically, this train is an express from Croton to Grand Central, so why would they have another Croton Grand Central Express leave at the same time?
It's almost worth it, though. I mean, if Amtrak is first class and Metro North Normal is coach, those are like second class right there.
Yeah, they're okay. But yeah, and I was already on the later train, so I didn't want to, But I stayed on there because I was in my nice safe car in the back. But yeah, those rowdy kids got some comeuppance. But as soon as that train pulled into Grand Central, those rowdy kids got rowdy again.
Well,
and then on the way home, there was still some rowdiness, and there was like a drunken fireman on the train, and you could tell there was stuff going on. And I just got home and.
Yeah, there were a bunch of troubles on my train on the way home, but they didn't involve me, and I just sat there with my laptop, so.
Yeah, I was just like, God, these people, God.
But the worst thing was, around lunchtime, like, man, I'm hungry. And again, I forgot about this holiday, so I just walk out of my building, and I want Indian food. And the only Indian place really near my work is in Grand Central.
Good job.
So I go in there. It's a pretty good place. And I go down, and pretty much, there is basically a large sea of people in green, loud, drunk, spilling things. I saw someone vomiting just in the middle of Grand Central. It's like all over the floor. I watched the police arresting.
Does he have to go to work today?
Apparently not.
Everyone in my work went to work today. Except I had one coworker who went to play golf, but everyone else is at work.
Well, everyone in my work went to work today, but that's because the stock market is very interesting currently.
And playing golf is Scottish, not Irish, so it's the wrong holiday.
Yes, it is. Scotland, Ireland.
Yes.
It's more Ireland.
All right.
Anyway, yeah, St. Patrick's Day. I mean, when I was a kid, St. Patrick's Day was, I wear a green shirt to school, or everybody fucking punches me because everyone's jerks.
I didn't do anything on St. Patrick's Day ever.
I wore a green shirt, and that was it.
I didn't do anything.
Until high school when I didn't do anything.
But I really think the problem is we take a commuter train. You know, it's a people. They want a nice, quiet trip to work and home. They want it to be fast. They want to sleep. They want to whatever. But the train is allowed to be used by all, you know, including people on day trips. And it's always day trip tourist people in groups who use the train are like the second most common people to use the train. If they use the train on a weekend, whatever, it's the weekend train, right?
Yeah, we're pretty rowdy on weekends.
But if they use the train on the weekday, right, it's like, whoa, the commuters are here. You need to. I really think that if there's like some sort of weekday group, they should sort of like designate them to, you know, far away from the commuters or something.
How? That's crazy.
They should be like, this is the quiet car. Absolutely no talking on this car whatsoever, or something like that.
Nah, you know what? I've noticed the conductors usually just deal with it. I mean, like on the trains going home, usually everyone's kind of talking and it's kind of loud. It's like not super loud, but it's not like silent. But in the morning, the conductor doesn't even announce the stops because he knows no one cares.
Yep.
And a lot of times, some of the cars have the lights off. And they're not supposed to be off, but obviously they were just turned off because people kind of want that.
Yeah.
And if someone's like even talking quietly, the conductor will be like, sir, you need to be quiet.
Yeah.
And they kind of just deal with it. But I mean, you can't really segregate. Just like the airlines, all the people who cause problems on the airlines are people who don't fly often.
Yeah, they should have family flights and business flights.
They're trying to do that in some airports
entirely
now.
separate flights instead of separate sections.
Yes, because I'm sure that is economically viable.
Why not?
And also a good idea.
The family fights just be less often.
The family fights will be...
Flights.
Yes. I disagree with you.
I think it's a good idea.
I don't think it's a good idea. Freedom of transportation. Besides, I'm willing to put up with a tiny bit of annoyance. Plus, you know what? I have earplugs. You know how much it takes to actually bother me when I'm on the train?
The earplugs protect me from plenty of noise. It's the, you know, people running up and down the train, bumping into you, possibly bargling on you. That's the trick.
Well, did any of that happen?
Someone else had happened.
Because if it happens, the conductor deals with it.
Yeah. It's hard, two conductors versus like a whole car full of rowdy kids.
Yeah, but all they have to do is say, well, we've stopped and here come the police.
Yeah, it didn't do much.
I've been on a few trains where the conductor will just like suddenly come on and say, effectively, to anyone who has luggage on the seats, remove it or I'm kicking you off the train as soon as I see you.
Yeah. The other problem is like, all right, you've got a whole car that's seemingly rowdy, right? How do you know who is, you know, what if someone was sitting quietly and everyone else is being rowdy? You know,
all you do is, I've seen conductors do this. They look in from the vestibule and they make note. And then they identify those people when the police come. I've seen that exact thing happen many times.
It's conductor procedure.
Actually, though, the funniest thing was that most of the people on my train home didn't have tickets.
Wow.
Or didn't understand how it worked. And pretty much, the conductor went person by person. The conductor would be like, sir, do you have a ticket? It's like, no, how much is it? And she'd be like, however much, which is always some ludicrous amount.
It's like $30.
They tack on this crazy surcharge if you don't have a ticket and you pay, and especially on a peak train.
Yeah, you're supposed to buy tickets at the machines. You can buy the ticket on the train, but it costs a whole shit ton extra.
And most of the people didn't have money. A lot of them didn't have IDs. They wanted to pay with credit cards. They balked at the price. A few people were like, I can't pay. What are you going to do? And conductor's like, kick you off the train.
Yeah.
As soon as we get to Croton Harmon.
Yep.
And if I can identify you, make a note so we see you if you ever come again.
Yep.
And the guy's like, what do I do? And she's like, get off the train quietly in Croton Harmon and hope I don't notice you. The thing is, the conductors will always cut you a break if you're not a jerk.
Yep.
So all people who ever come to New York City, if you screw up on the train, just be polite and they will totally cut you a break. That is my advice to you.
Yeah. You know what? Did you read that milestones thing they give out?
I read that every time because it's always...
Did you read what it said?
I always read it because it always is very kind of snarky in its, seriously, people, be quiet in the morning.
Well, did you see what it said in the most recent one?
I'm not sure to what you're referring.
About they're actually going to give the conductors like handheld gizmos instead of the paper they've been using for 100 years.
Oh, yeah, and I think that's cool.
Yeah.
I was going to wait till it happened, and then I was going to talk about it.
So now you can pay, you're probably going to be able to pay with a credit card on the train instead of, you know, they punch a holes in a piece of paper and give you a piece and then file it in the office or...
I'm really looking forward to that, to be honest, because that's like such a good idea.
Yeah, it is. I'm surprised it wasn't implemented, I don't know, 5 years ago when that technology was invented.
I don't even care about the paying part. What I like is that now they'll get perfect, accurate statistics of who is going where, not just going to Grand Central, but a lot of times they don't really know who is taking what trains when, who's getting off at all those kind of in-between stops when, because a lot of like, if you want to go from some stations to other stations, like when I was commuting to the Bronx from here, it's almost impossible, but yet a lot of people do it, and now they'll know exactly how many people do it. And I think the train schedules are going to become 10 times better.
Maybe. All right, let's break through all these bunch of newses. All right?
All right, so what do you got first? You see, there's so much to talk about. We both have a real news and a quickie news.
Well, here's my quick news. Actually, I could talk about this a lot, but I'm not going to. There's a company called Japan Steel Works Limited, and that has to be an awesome fucking place, right?
That's like heavy industry right there.
That is the heaviest of industries. Basically, it's a giant steel mill in Japan where they make like the world's best steel or close to it. And at the top of the mountain, there's a guy in an old-fashioned hut, and he makes swords, right? Like the old school way. He makes awesome swords with their best steels for sword making. But down in the steel mill is where the news is at. I just wanted to point that out so you know that it's the same steel mill that's making swords as making this.
Well, no, that guy in the top actually makes those things by hand.
Yeah, but he doesn't make the steel. They take the steel from the mill.
I was saying the thing that you're about to talk about.
Oh, no, he doesn't. In fact, no, he does not make... In the steel mill down at the bottom of the hill, where they do not make swords, or they make big things, very big things, they have a factory that is the only factory on the entire Earth that is capable of producing the core of a nuclear reactor in one solid piece. Every place else that makes nuclear reactor cores makes two pieces that are half and half and then welds them together. Now, you might say, oh, well, you know, why is that a big deal? Because it's a bajillion times safer than having the two separate pieces welded together. So basically, everyone who's building a nuclear reactor, which is hundreds and hundreds, right, is buying these things. And the thing is, they have to put down, well, first, they can only make 4 a year. So if 100 people want them, you're going to be waiting a while.
You know, that makes me realize, the enormity of the task. I'm afraid from this point forward, we can only make 4 Geeknights a year. We just can't really handle doing more than that.
Yeah. And 2...
Well, it would be if we didn't know how to edit, like some people.
People who want these things, because there's only 4 a year, they have to make a down payment of $100 million. And this is considered like a sure bet, like a great investment. Like, oh, of course, why wouldn't you spend $100 million? It's obvious. For one big piece of metal. So yeah, I think that's pretty amazing, and I think if you read this article, it talks about how they make the 600-ton ingot of steel and such. And
think about the enormity of that. I said enormity twice for a reason.
600-ton ingot.
$100 million deposit.
Steel.
I put a $5 deposit on my car repair.
I mean, you go to a chip factory, whatever. Steel. Look at that. It's the business.
Yeah, I mean, even tiny steel mills are awesome. Imagine, I'd love to see videos of just all the stuff that
I don't
goes
think they
on
would
in
let
there.
you in, because then that would reveal the secret to the rest of the world, and suddenly everyone would be making one-piece nuclear reactor cores.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right, so my quickie
I'd
news.
make one in my backyard.
My quickie news, real briefly, I just want to point this out. According to some article that's linked on Slashdot, it appears that 6 and only 6 botnets are responsible for approximately 85% of the world's spam. I might have a lot to say about that, but I think we should wait and do a show on botnets and spam or something like that, because it would take much more than a news, but I have to point that out because there are debates along the lines of, why don't we make secret evil viruses that screw anyone who is infected by these botnets, thus saving the internet? And there's a lot of reasons why no one does that, but but I just want to point this article out because if you're running Windows and you think that your Windows is fine and safe and there's nothing wrong with it, you might want to double check with some sort of third-party firewall checking your outbound traffic.
You might want to get someone who knows something to check, because obviously you don't.
Because a large percentage...
If you know how to check, then I can guarantee you're safe because you know. But you might think you know and not know.
So how do you know if you know, or you just think you know?
You get someone who really knows.
But what if they just think they know?
Then you're fucked.
Or you could just ask us. I don't know.
You can only trust us because we know.
Yes, only us.
You can only trust someone who is very intelligent.
But what if we only think we know?
We know.
The thing is, there's almost no way to tell.
There's an easy way to tell.
Well, yes, external outbound firewall is the only way to know.
Wireshark can easily tell. Wireshark and eyeballs.
Well, Wireshark can tell, but what if your TCP/IP stack is compromised?
You can use another computer with Wireshark with a hub.
Yes, like I said, external monitoring, external outbound monitoring is the only way to know.
Yes.
So now you know. And if you thought something else, you didn't know. And now you know that you didn't know, and now you know that you know.
Yep.
Anyway, you know.
You know.
So I got a real news here.
All right.
So, there's been this problem lately with the FCC kind of not saying what their regulations are, but then suddenly someone says fuck on the airwaves and $100,000 fine, your network's going to be shut down, all this business. The FCC has wide and broad powers, and some of those wide and broad powers are important, and I agree with them. And some of those powers, I'm of the mind that the FCC should have absolutely no regulation whatsoever over the content of what is on the airwaves.
I think that's
They should have full power to regulate how the airwaves are used.
Exactly.
As in protocols, as in companies having the right to use or not use them with such power and whatever.
If people are preventing shared technology spaces such as radio frequencies from working, then the FCC can step in. If someone is using them for things which are legal, then it doesn't matter as long as they're not fucking it up.
But there have been a whole bunch of controversies and a whole bunch of problems with this in the U.S. lately. I mean, you might remember what happened at a Super Bowl a while ago, and there have been other incidents. But all the networks that have balls have basically stood up and challenged all these things. And there have been a bunch of lawsuits going around.
Because they want porn on primetime TV, and I'm all for it.
Or maybe it's more that they don't like the fact that an entity over which they have no say and no control can...
Well, they have say and control. They just send lobbyists with lots of money to say and control.
But remember, the FCC is largely independent of other governmental structures.
Yeah, but you can still send people with money over there and get what you want.
Not so much. You have...
Not on paper.
I remember, the FCC generally follows the guidelines put forth by a ridiculous minority of the American population.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this minority actually has very little lobbying power when compared to the lobbying power of the entertainment industry.
Yeah.
Yet the entertainment industry
Well, the
always
entertainment
loses.
industry, people it's very hard to tell because you read the news, right? And you see news about different things. You see news about sports. You see news about entertainment industry. You see news about, banks. You see news about technology industry, right? But it's hard to tell because you sort of get the idea of how big things are based on the quantity of news. Like you see lots and lots of entertainment news, and that sort of makes entertainment feel big. But if you really look at the numbers, like technology industry, like Microsoft could buy probably the entire entertainment industry, like all of it. Like every movie studio, Microsoft could buy them all probably. That's the size we're talking about here.
Yep. But regardless, this really came into stark relief here when there was this problem where the FCC changed its policy on so-called fleeting expletives. The biggest example was when someone at the Golden Globes 5 years ago, didn't even say outright, but just uttered the phrase, and I'm going to quote here, fucking brilliant.
Mm.
And the FCC said, well, the F word, when used in any context, is, quote, inherently sexual in connotation, unquote.
All right, even if it is, what's wrong with that?
Even beyond that, fuck you has no sexual connotations with me saying it now. It means that I rather dislike you, that I'm blowing you off, that I disagree with you.
Even if it does have sexual connotations, what's wrong with sexual connotation?
Well, apparently, I don't even know. But the problem is the FCC they changed their policy saying that they can enforce and fine as a result of any network allowing expletives that are fleeting to be put forth, to be on the airwaves. And they protested this, and a court said, well, you didn't really say why you changed your policy, and you didn't make your policy clear, so your policy can't be enforced until you come forward with something. And now they're appealing it, and it's going all the way to the Supreme Court.
Oh, it's the case of the century.
So the Supreme Court is going to,
Did they say yes, or did they just say no, we're not going to look at it?
well, quote, the Supreme Court on Monday stepped into a legal fight over the use of curse words on the airwaves.
Oh, what did the previous court say?
The previous court was the court that said, I already said that, Scott.
Oh, okay, so the previous court was on our side.
Yes.
Okay.
And they appealed it all the way to SCOTUS.
Okay, but if SCOTUS says we don't want to look at that, then we win.
Well, I believe the news, Scott, as I pointed out, was that they said they're going to look at
Well,
it.
that's usually bad because that means there's a chance of losing, whereas if they said no, there'd be no chance of losing.
However, I'd rather them look at it.
Well, if they look at it and then we still win, that's like double plus.
Yes, and if they look at it and they rule otherwise, I've learned that I now disagree with the Supreme Court on such a fundamental level because, to paraphrase Seinfeld, freedom of speech and religion is the first one.
It is indeed.
So the case will
one.
actually be argued in the fall, and this, in my eyes, is, other than maybe the whole torture thing, is probably the most important Supreme Court case to be put forth in recent memory.
This is going to be the most important case until we have the wiretapping case.
Yes.
The
And
inevitable.
I want to point out that the wiretapping case, a lot of people say, oh, the government can't do anything about that because blah, 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 blah. And this is not big news yet, but I point out that last week, the House had a secret session for the first time in like 2 decades, which means that they're going to debate something secret. And obviously it was that. And they voted to not give immunity.
It really seems like, lately, I mean, like, I don't know, maybe I just paid attention to the Supreme Court less earlier in my life, but it seems like the Supreme Court, like, it's like every case is like the new case of the century. It was like the Grokster case, then there's the public domain case.
There were a bunch of cases you didn't care about.
I know, there were a bunch I didn't care about, but it does seem like case after case after case is bigger and badder than the previous one. I think like in 5 years it's going to be a case like so crazy. It'll be like, should we end the world or not? It's going to be.
Well, I think the reason, if a case gets to the Supreme Court, it has to be the case of the century because that means that
No, not always. A lot of them are sometimes just small things or
No, they're
relatively
not.
small
It
things.
means they're so contentious that it has become a federal, possibly constitutional issue. We need the people who have the most authority possible to come down and deign to say what actually is going to be. And no one can do anything about it except Andrew Jackson. And he's dead.
Yeah, he's dead. All right. So check this out. I'm not exactly sure. Like, I heard about this news on a podcast, right?
Oh, great. Some guy on the internet.
Well, Twit. And
Well, now you're hearing about this on a podcast that heard about it from a podcast.
well, they didn't hear about it from a podcast. I heard about it from Twit.
No, you're hearing about it from us. You
Oh,
out there.
oh, them
we
there.
heard about it
I thought you
from
were
a
talking to me.
podcast, and that podcast heard about it from some
So
guy
I
on
went.
the internet.
So because I decided I wanted to talk about it, I had to look for the article. And I don't know, maybe I just couldn't find the article, but I found basically it seems like Twit made up a news that was the combination of two articles that were
Man,
regardless, basically Twit said, this is what Twit said. Twit said that some Chinese company made like routers and switches that were fake and put the word Cisco on them. Sold them to the US, but they had back doors in them.
now, one, buying a bootleg Cisco router with all the functionality unlocked, brilliant.
Absolutely brilliant.
Selling an awesome Cisco router that's obviously bootleg with everything unlocked, along with a back door, brilliant.
Yes, brilliant again.
Like, my hat is off to everyone involved.
Well, except for the morons who don't realize they bought a router with a back door. Like buying a router without a back door, brilliant. Buying a router with the back door, if you can find the back door and seal it up, double brilliant.
God, we just need someone to make an open source router that isn't awful.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway, in looking for this news, I found actually 2 other stories. The first story is that there were bootleg routers made from China and sent to the US and Canada, and that they confiscated bootleg routers. $78 million worth of Cisco systems networking equipment that was bootleg.
I would probably, if I was using it for my own use, I wouldn't be that opposed to a bootleg router.
If it worked.
Yeah.
Then I read another story that's basically says that PC Pro News in the UK, right, said that it would be possible for Asian manufactured switchers and routers to have back doors,
Hey,
and
wait
we
a
should
minute.
watch about that.
See, it's funny. That sounds like a subtle change. Like, it happened to, it could happen. But no, that turned a real article into nothing more than FUD.
And basically what I'm linking to here is an editorial by a guy on CNET who says that FUD is xenophobic and blah, 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 fuck you.
Granted,
and I agree with that guy.
if I were in China making bootleg Cisco routers in order to sell and make a gigantic profit, you can absolutely bet that there would be some sort of VPN, backdoor, credit card numbered, password getting thing in there.
But that would be true for me making bootleg routers in any country.
Yeah.
The fact that they were specifically being all racist against, the Asians, who are known for their bootlegs, there is no doubt. But
mostly China, Korea.
Yeah, you know what I'm
Taiwan,
saying. The Southeast Asia.
Mostly China.
Yeah.
And the Philippines.
But you get the drift here. So I haven't found yet a news article that shows that these two things have actually been combined into a true story. But they are two separate things. They're interesting and they're worth thinking about.
You know what? A much better way to go about this, if you are a Chinese bootlegger, instead of going the whole, I'm going to make fake Cisco stuff, sell it, and put a backdoor in, is I'm going to take the Cisco stuff, sell it, but I'm not going to call it Cisco. I'm going to call it
Sasco.
I'm going to call it something. Sorny.
We'll go down to we'll go down to Canal Street, and right next to the Versace, there'll be the Sascos.
It's a Versace Disney crossover.
The guy will set up a table on the side. Guy will set up a table on the sidewalk. He's like 24-port switches, 24-port switch, $10
with load balancing and a Pix firewall. I'll throw in a Pix firewall.
Pix firewall free with every purchase.
But what I would do is I'd make my own brand, and it would happen to just be bootleg Cisco software and bootleg Cisco designs. But I'd stand by my brand, as in my brand is totally not full of backdoors.
Nah.
So that people who are going to go buy bootleg Costco's are totally going to buy my bootleg Costco's. And also, now Cisco can't get me for trademark infringement. They can only get me if they prove that I'm using their software.
Which would be hard.
Yes.
Because I don't think they even know what software they're using.
All I'd have to do is change some checksums here and there. And man.
Man. Yeah, exactly.
So, if I were a Chinese large-scale pirate, that is what I would do.
Yep.
Wow, we just killed that whole If I Was a Pirate episode.
All right, Rim. Have you ever tried one of those digital to-do lists in the past?
I had a PDA once, and I put to-do lists on it, and then I never looked at that to-do list again, ever.
Yeah. I get, it's weird. It's like, there's all these productivity tools, and they seem sort of obvious, right? But you end up not really using them. Like Google Calendar is the only one I've kind of used, but I don't really, I don't live by it. I use it a little bit.
I use Google Calendar and things like that to remind me, does this convention overlap with this other convention before I try to do events at both of them?
It's weird. It's like they have these tools designed where you can live by them, like a day planner, like the Day Runner products or something, And I feel like that's like a thing you need to have or do. But every time I try one, I might use, I had calendars that I just never used. The Google Calendar I do use, but I only use it a bit. I feel like I should be using it hardcore, putting everything in there. But I feel like that would take more time. It would just be a waste of time because I don't forget to do anything. And I just don't do it. And the same thing is with to-do lists. I've had to-do lists in the past, and I sort of use them and not use them.
Wait a minute, I just remembered when I first got my new Moleskine, I put a to-do list in there. And I realized I haven't looked at my Moleskine in a long time.
Yep.
Let's see what I got in here. Email Katsukan about panels.
Did it.
Email Uncle Yo about Katsukan.
Did it.
Make an archival feed. I didn't do that.
Didn't do that.
Make CDs? I don't even know what that is.
But anyway, I also did a to-do list in my Moleskine, and I kind of use it a little bit, sort of like the same way I use the Google Calendar. I don't live by it, but I sort of use it some, and I'll look through it and I'm like, oh, right, I forgot about that thing, And sometimes I'll come up with an idea, and if I remember to write it down real quick, then even if I forget that idea later, it'll be in there, and I kind of like that.
Yep. What I have used things like that for is whenever I'm in a bookstore, if I see a book that I want, I write the name down in my notebook or something. And then when I get
the thing
home,
is, I use Listal for that.
Well, no, when I'm in the bookstore and I see a book.
Yep.
And then I come home and I put it in Amazon and I buy it because it's always cheaper that way.
But anyway, if you're that kind of person, right? I found here there's a billion to-do lists on the web. Like, oh, we have a to-do list. We have one. There's one I found called Remember the Milk. RememberTheMilk.com. And it's got this happy cow, and he's just kind of cute there. And this to-do list actually looks like it might have the potential to be a real to-do list. It integrates if you have, Windows Mobile, it works with that. You got Google Calendar, works with that. Got an iPhone or an iPod Touch, works with that. Got Twitter, works with that. Got Gmail, works with that. It works with all your stuff. It just integrates, and it's a happy, awesome to-do list. This is how web applications need to be made, people. All right? I was dealing today with, I had, Twitter, Pounce, and Jaiku, and I was trying to sort them all out, and none of them was good. They all sucked in some way and were all good in some way, and it was horrendously annoying. But remember the milk, even if it's, you don't end up living by it, this is a to-do list where it's not a problem in the software if you're not, using it to the fullest. It is the high quality.
So I had a much more meaningful thing of the day, something I generated some discussion about. I'll save that maybe for a Thursday. But instead, this video, there's a small chance it was staged, but I would believe that it isn't, because I have seen people do things this dumb and more
I know
dumb.
what video you're using.
I have witnessed people in actual workplaces doing things like this.
All right.
Dudes taking a spool. They gotta get it up into another part of a building.
I don't think everyone knows what you mean by spool.
All right, a spool of cable, as in it's like 5 or 6 feet in diameter. It's real heavy.
Think a spool of thread, but with giant, heavy cable wrapped around it, and it's big, like as big as you.
Like the kind of thing a college kid will steal when there's wire gone from it and make a table out of.
It's the kind of thing you see on like the phone company truck with cable wrapped around it.
Yeah.
Big wooden discs with a cylinder in the middle.
Well, these guys have constructed some sort of ramp to get these things up. It looks like they're probably wiring this building for connectivity.
Why didn't they use an elevator?
There's a lot of reasons for that. A lot of buildings make the mistake of not having service elevators if they're small buildings not in cities. And then it's like normal elevators just can't deal with stuff like that. Or the elevators were broken, or they wouldn't fit in the elevator, or that floor was like a mezzanine that isn't supported by elevators.
Well, it looks like it was sort of an open lobby. They could have used one of those lifting things.
Not how do you get that in the lobby? You have to construct it in there because obviously there's no big way into that lobby anymore.
Yeah.
And also,
well, there will be soon.
And also, a lot of times, like the floor, there's a lot of reasons why they would be
poorly
doing this.
designed building.
There are a lot of legitimate
or
reasons.
morons.
No, there are a lot of legitimate reasons why we would be doing something like this. However, there are certain safety precautions you take to do this sort of thing safely. These people did not take those precautions. What results is nothing more than sheer absolute hilarity. Bonus points when the car alarm starts going off.
Yeah, that was it's like you see some damage done from morons.
And then there's like this 2-second pause. You're like, wow.
And then
you
there
hear,
was more damage
bam,
that was
bam,
off camera.
Bam, bam. You're like, did it hit a car? And sure enough, you get to see, yes, it hit a car.
There was much off camera damage.
No one got hurt, so don't feel bad about watching it. Just laugh.
At the morons or the poorly designed building?
No, the morons, because the building, there might have been a lot of legitimate reasons for what they were doing.
But when they designed the building, they designed a stupid
Not
thing, maybe.
necessarily. I don't want to get into this. There are a lot of legitimate reasons for doing what they were doing.
I don't think so.
Yes. The only problem here is that they were doing these things in an unsafe manner. There's a safe way to do that.
You could have just kept the spool on the bottom floor and taken cable off of the spool as you needed it.
No, that's really, really inefficient.
Yeah.
All you do is have a winch at the top and you secure the thing. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all you had to do.
Anyway. So, I got to talk about programming again, right?
Yeah, go nuts. I'm going to play Leighton.
Oh, great. So, last time I talked about what is programming, all right? And, I talked a little about that. And basically, programming is you tell the chip what to do, right? But the next thing I was going to talk about was programming languages. And I was going to go over, some of the big, very popular programming languages of today and the past, and talk a little about what each one does and how they're different. But I realized something. I can't go talking about programming languages yet until I talk about what is a programming language.
So we're not going to have the what's better, Visual Basic or C?
We're not. There's no such thing. No language is better than any other language unless you have a specific situation in mind.
I would argue that some languages are overall worse, but they're not.
Some languages can be less useful. There are some languages that are always less useful than some other language for every possible situation. But that, they're not like a worse language. That's just not a valid kind of.
I can submit a worse language. I made it right now.
Anyway,
it doesn't even work. Anyway, go on.
That's exactly. This is what I'm talking about. Is that before you understand that kind of argument, you have to understand what is a programming language. Well, telling you what a programming language is very simple. A programming language is a language that's used for programming. That's all there is. I already told you what programming was last week. So the part you don't know is what a language is. Now you're thinking, I know what a language is, like English, Spanish, French, Chinese.
It's just the thing that tells the computer what to do.
No. A language, there's the colloquial use of the word language, English, Spanish, French, Japanese, Canadian, right? And then there's the sort of language theory use of the word language, which is a completely different meaning. Well, actually, it isn't super completely different. But basically, according to the Wikipedia, because I couldn't come up with the super exact definition on my own, even though I know, a language is a system of visual, auditory, or tactile symbols of communication and the rules used to manipulate them. So you have some sort of symbology, all right? And there are some rules governing the symbology. That is what a language is. So a programming language is a set of symbols, rules governing how do you manipulate those symbols, and those manipulated symbols are used to program. That is what a programming language is.
Well, simple. We're done.
No, we're not really done because people have no idea what the hell I just said, do they?
Some people might, but if you do, then you're not going to learn anything today, most likely.
No. All right, so the thing is, when someone says, okay, I kind of understand that. Well, the next thing, every language, right? You say, okay, a language is a set of rules governing the use of a set of symbols, right? Well, how do we describe those rules? How do I tell someone a language? Well, if I was going to tell Rim about a language, what those rules are called is the grammar. You see? Oh, you see where this goes. The grammar, yes. So the grammar is basically, it's the set of rules that tell you what the language is. So let's say here, I'm going to come up with a brand new language right now. Okay? My language is called AB. That's the name of my language. And the alphabet of my language, alphabet being a keyword, has two symbols.
It's funny that you chose AB because alphabet, literally, alpha, beta, AB.
I know.
Anyway.
Yes, you see me?
I see that you're clever. You're
Yes. My language, AB, my language, AB, has an alphabet. That alphabet has two symbols. You see, the alphabet is the set of symbols for the language. A and B. I hope you know what those are. I'm not going to, and they look like the letter A and the letter B for the English alphabet. And the way the rules of my language, the grammar of my language is thus. The language is comprised of sentences, right? You can have as many sentences as you want, right? Every sentence must begin with A. A can be followed only by either B or the end of the sentence. Every B must be followed either by a B or an A. I just made a whole new language. You see that? I made rules. The rules make a language. And now we can take symbols and arrange them, and then we can look at those symbols and we can say, are those symbols grammatically correct? Are they in this language or are they not in this language?
All right, so you've got your language, and we know how to form things in the language correctly. Yep. We know what the rules are, so what does that get me?
What does that get you? Well, you see, when you have a language like the English language, you see, the human brain is sort of flexy, and it is has the fuzzy logics.
Has the fusiform gyrosins.
Yes, as things which computers right now do not have. So, if you were to try to speak the English language to a computer, which is a valid language, it's a language, just according to the definitions I just gave, The computer, it'd be very, very difficult to make a computer that understood that, right? And like I talked about last week, the chip in the computer, it knows like an assembly language, which is just numbers. And then we sort of replace some of those numbers with letters to make it easier to type in, but really it's not any different. It's incredibly difficult for a human to think in the way a machine does. That's why assembly language is difficult. So it's incredibly difficult to tell a machine what to do because you have to think the way it does, which is hard. It's much easier to think in, your native human language, but it's very hard for the computer to understand that. So what we do in the world of programming is we basically, if you made a chip that on the lowest level where the assembly language was easy, that chip would be very slow because the assembly language is determined by the actual hardware. So we make the hardware where the machine language is very hard, it's the assembly language, right? But then we make another language that's a little bit easier for humans to read, and then that language gets translated into assembly language, you see? And we make up these languages, we make up grammars for these languages, and then, we talk to the computer in these new languages that we just made up. We can make up any language you want. We could even make AB into a programming language if we wanted to. And then we arbitrarily decide, right? Because a language, the meaning has nothing to do with the language, right? What A means, like A, B, 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 A, end of sentence, is a valid sentence in the AB language. What does that mean? Oh, that has nothing to do with the language, what it means. We arbitrarily decide what the things are going to mean outside of the language. And what we do is we take a grammar, we type in our programming language, the computer looks at the grammar, right? It looks at the language, and then it says, aha, that is in this language or it is not. If it's not, that's how you get the syntax errors, you see? Because it says, oh, that's not in this language. That doesn't match up. You put ABAB, which is wrong because A must either be followed by A or the end of B or the end of a sentence, and B must be followed by either A or B. So if B is followed by the end of a sentence, it's no good. I don't know. This is getting confusing, even for me.
Don't do what Donnie doesn't
do. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, what we do is you make up a language. The language can be rules for how the symbols are arranged. You can arrange the symbols however you want as, when you're making up the language, but once the language is made up, you obey the language. And then the computer will translate that language according to the arbitrary things you set up. So we decide, okay, ABA, that means, the computer do this. And ABBA, that means computer do this other thing. And we just come up with a language that is, AB is hard for people to understand. It's only got two symbols. It doesn't mean a lot of stuff. But if you come up with a language like C, we can have things like printf, if, while, do, then, return, int x, integer, all sorts of, things that mean something to a human being. And we write rules for how we're going to arrange these things in a structured way that a computer can break them apart. And now you can tell a computer what to do in a language that makes sense to humans, but is still structured and according to a grammar that a computer can bust apart. And that is sort of what language is. I don't know. I didn't do it. My planning on how to explain that was much better than my execution.
That's fine, because my what is IT was, I'm just filling time before I eat a bunch of food. Let's just keep trying to talk.
Yeah. Anyway, I will clarify more on the forum if anyone wants, but here, I want to say one more thing, though.
Nah.
Here's where this kind of stuff gets interesting, and this is the stuff that is like the complex parts of computer science that you will learn if you go get a CS degree, all right? So let's say I want to write down on a piece of paper, right, a definition of my language. I want to write the grammar down. If I want to write the grammar down, I need to write it in a language, don't I? So we have languages for writing grammars. We have one language in particular called Bacchus-Naur form, or BNF. Most people just say BNF because Bacchus-Naur is hard to say. And BNF is a language for writing down grammars. It's really not that complicated if you look at it. It's pretty obvious. It basically says this can, this is that and this is that. So you can say sentence equals, and then after that you put, the form of a sentence. And then you could even do like sentence equals a number of words, or word equals a number of, letters. Letter equals A or B or C or D or E or F, and that's English right there. It's not that complicated. But what if I wanted to write the grammar of Bacchus Nauer form? Because Bacchus Nauer form is a language. So you could actually write the definition of the Bacchus Nauer form language in Bacchus Nauer form. Think about that. So wait, here, we're going to get crazier. You ready? XML is a language. It's a markup language, not a programming language, but it's a language, right? XML is a language. It's the extensible markup language. In XML, there is a subset of XML called a DTD, a document type definition, I believe is what it stands for.
I have no idea.
I think it's a document type definition. A DTD is a subset of XML. So all DTDs are XML, but not all XML are DTDs. And a DTD is a way of writing a grammar for a language that is a subset of XML. So XHTML, for example, is also another subset of XML, right? So I could write the rules for writing XHTML in a DTD. In fact, there is one. You can go look at the rules for XHTML. There is an XHTML DTD that you can look at. That's a set of rules for writing an XML document written in a subset of XML itself. So you can write, get this, you can write a document type definition because DTDs are XML, right? You can write a DTD for DTDs. You have XML as a language. Within that language, you have a sub-language that can define a subset of the language. So you can define the subset of the language with itself. You're writing languages, you're using languages to write rules for languages, and therefore they can write rules about how to write themselves. It's totally crazy. And I got an assignment to write the DTD for DTDs once, and I didn't do well. It was hard.
Man, never had to do anything weird like that in IT. We just like, here's a router, set it up.
Yeah. If you want to go a real challenge, try to write a document type definition for document type definitions. In fact, there is one. You could probably just download it on the internet and see what it looks like. I don't know. Maybe I'll find it somewhere. But this is the kind of stuff that is like the core of computer science. You have languages. It's language theory, how languages work. Different language structures. Because this is why we have so many different programming languages. You'd think, oh, we'll just have one. We'll just have a handful. Why do we need so many? It's because you can structure languages in so many different ways, and it's not about the computer so much. The computer speaks assembly. We can we just need to when you're making a new language, you just need to make sure that you can translate it into the assembly somehow, somewhere, right? Or you could even translate it into another language that can then be translated to assembly, like Python translates to C, translates to assembly. So as long as I can translate to C, I'm okay.
Now you might say that seems silly, but think about it. It's really a lot easier to write Python than it is to write C.
Well, it depends on what you're doing.
Well, for me it is. For
you,
a non-coder.
Yeah.
If I'm doing simple stuff, I can get a lot of the performance of things that are written in C, but I only have to write them in Python.
Yeah, so there's this whole science, and it is science, it's computer science, of trying to work out languages, working with languages and grammars to come up with languages that are easy for people to understand and, are structured in a way that you can use them to get different jobs done. However, also, you need to be able to get computers to understand these languages, make sense of them, understand them, and translate them into actual real assembly instructions that the chip in the computer, reads and does something according to that. And that's like the core of CS there. That's the hardcore shits.
Well, if you don't have anything else, then I can tell you all that next Monday, I'm going to talk about a IT subject that is near and dear to a lot of people. I'm going to talk about the help desk and what that really is and what its purpose is.
Those are the most annoyed people at the company, and all the morons call them constantly.
The people, when your Comcast thing is broken, you call these people.
Yeah.
Everything that goes wrong, these are the people, they're pretty much the interface between users and people who actually care.
And the big problem, I'll talk about it next.
This has been Geeknights with Rim and Scott. Special thanks to DJ Pretzel for the opening music.
Be sure to visit our website at www.frontrowcrew.com. where you'll find show notes, links, our awesome forum, a link to our Frapper map, and links to all the RSS feeds.
We say feeds plural because Geeknights airs 4 nights a week, covering 4 different brands of geekery. Mondays are science and technology. Tuesdays, we have video games, board games, and RPGs. Wednesdays are anime, manga, comic nights. And Thursdays are the catch-alls for various rants and tomfoolery.
You can send us feedback by email to geeknights@frontrowcrew.com. Or you can send audio feedback via audio. Just click the link that says send me an audio on the right side of our website.
If you like what you hear, you can catch the last 100 episodes in iTunes or in your favorite podcatcher. For the complete archives, visit the website, which has everything.
Geeknights is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike 2.5 license. This means you can do whatever you want with it as long as you give us credit, don't make money, and share it in kind. Geeknights is recorded live with no studio and no audience. But unlike those other late shows, it's actually recorded at night.